Welcome back. George Alexander of Muthoot Finance joining us now. George, good morning. Thanks so much for being with us on the show. Let's start off with the demand outlook for gold loans. How's that shaping up given, the point that we're at in the cycle? And what's it looking like for the rest of the year?
Yeah, good morning. This quarter number 3, last 1.5 months has been extremely good. We have already grown by 1,300 crores of portfolio in the last 6 weeks itself. So quarter 3 and quarter 4, we see much better demand, as well as we are able to lend much better also these 2 quarters. So probably by the end of the year, after the 3rd and 4th quarter, we should see a minimum 15% growth or little more growth on AUM by the year end.
There were some liquidity constraints, in the 2nd quarter with LTV dropping sharply as well. Tell us what some of the challenges were, how you've sort of gotten past them and what really lies ahead now. Will growth be a problem?
Yeah, no. Okay, thank you. So last Q2 was little difficult with regard to liquidity because banks were actually basketing us also with all the other NBFCs, whereas gold loan NBFCs are separate because we don't have an NPA issue, we don't have a liquidity issue. But unfortunately, we were all clubbed with them. In fact, I'm requesting the regulators to have a separate classification for gold loan NBFCs. But to tide over that, we have done the one issue of retail NCDs where we collected 460 crores 2 weeks back. Another NCD retail is also coming up for a like amount in the next 10 days. Along with that, we also went for the external commercial borrowings of $450 million, which we also received 10 days back. So overall liquidity is quite comfortable now. And also banks have started just a little more, giving us little more growth capital in the last 2 weeks. So next two quarters, we don't see any liquidity issue at all. And we can maybe grow very well in the next 2 quarters.
Okay. In an attempt to diversify the borrowing profile, just talk to us a little bit more about the funding avenues you've tapped and how much you've availed of overseas as well.
So we have a 36,000 crore book. Of that, 10,000 crores is own capital. Maybe the rest, 26,000 crores is the borrowed funding. Out of that, 50% today is bank funding. Another 25% should be from our NCDs. And probably about 16% of the borrowing should be from the CPs, etc. So we have now introduced or rather brought in a new avenue for borrowing, which is the external commercial borrowing, which has seen very good response because although our issue size was 450 crores, the demand came up to $1,200 million. So out of that, we were able to allot 450 million only. So we see good demand for the paper overseas, and it is also listed in the London Stock Exchange.
Mr. Alexander, morning. How are you observing the weight behind pricing power? What kind of a projection do you have in terms of your spreads going forward?
The spreads, usually we expect the spread to be about 12%, around 12%. But last quarter, we had a little better spread, which is about 14%. It was mainly because we had increased our lending rates last 3 months back, and the impact of that is there. And secondly, because of the increase in the gold price, the NPAs which we had in our books, which got released or closed, we were able to fetch much better interest because NPAs fetches more interest and more penal charges. So we were able to collect all the penal charges. So the realizations were better. That is why last quarter the interest spread was 14%. But going forward, we should see 12%, around 12% to be a stable interest rate spread.
Okay, and could you give us a view on how local banks are reacting with respect to rationing the quantum and pricing the RM while lending?
Oh, the local banks, local NBFCs, if you're asking about the gold loan part of it, they are also doing gold loan lending. But if you're asking about the pricing for Muthoot, they have not reduced the prices. In the last 7-8 months, they have only increased the borrowing cost to us by about 100 basis points. They have still not started reducing it, but they have started releasing more funding now.
Can you update us then on the situation in Kerala? It's one of your key markets. You have seen quite a few branch shutdowns. So in terms of the overall scheme of things, how much is it going to really affect your business and where will this be made up? And what's the situation, of course, right now?
So Kerala business is only 3.2% of our total business. Although we started from Kerala, in the last 2 decades, we have branched out to all parts of India. And today, Kerala lending business is only 3.2% of our total portfolio. So just as you see, we grow by 15% every year. So 3% in Kerala is not an issue. We had about 800 branches in Kerala. In the last 2 years, we have scaled it down to 600. It is because the lending aspect in Kerala is much lesser. Kerala is more of an NCD market for us. Now that the NCD bonds are all online and are dematted, so we don't need too much of branch presence in Kerala. That is why we are closing down or scaling down the branch operations in Kerala. So as far as the lending is concerned, just because it is having only 3.2% of our portfolio, it doesn't affect us. But still, as having said that, we still have 600 branches in Kerala which are functioning normally.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Alexander, and taking us through the latest there at Muthoot.